I'm beginning to resent my wife. Man, it feels like I've been carrying this weight for years now, and it's only getting heavier. My wife, she's manipulative as hell, refuses to work, and doesn't lift a finger around the house. Whenever I ask her for help, she just tells me to man up and deal with it. Deep down, I know I should leave her, but I can't bring myself to do it. I remember back when she begged me to take on a second full-time job so she could go to college, and of course I did it. But as soon as she got that degree, she suddenly decided she didn't want to work anymore, and would rather stay home with our first kid. Then, when our second child was born, I knew we needed more money, but she flat out refused to work. So I went back to school, got my master's degree, and kept working 2 jobs. It was tough, but I powered through. Now, 3 years later, I'm the sole provider for a family of 4, working 50-hour weeks, and still coming home to do most of the household chores. I'm doing the laundry, the cooking, driving the kids around, pretty much everything. My wife still won't help, no matter how many times I ask. She just says she's working just as hard, and if I'm so tired I should stop working so much. What's wild is I actually took her advice recently, and took 2 weeks off without telling her beforehand. She freaked out, not because she was worried about me, but because she didn't know how she was going to pay for her spa day. That's how out of touch she is. And the one-upping. It's like a constant competition with her. If I tell her I had a bad day, she'll say hers was worse because I'm lucky I get to go away for work while she has to stay home. If I mention my feet are killing me after walking all day during a work trip, clocking in 30,000 steps, she'll say that's nothing compared to her standing in the kitchen with a kid clinging to her. It's exhausting, man. I'm worn out, physically and emotionally, but I'm stuck in this cycle where I can't seem to break free. For the past couple of years I've been told over and over again that I ruined her life, her chances, her everything. She treats me like I'm the worst thing that ever happened to her, like she didn't beg to be a stay-at-home mom in the first place. It's crazy how she's twisted everything around, making me feel like absolute garbage. I gotta mention my mother-in-law though. She lives with us, and honestly, she's a gem. She does what she can around the house, even with her age slowing her down a bit. Recently, she pulled me aside, saying she noticed something was different with both me and my wife. She pointed out that I'm more attached to my kids now, and hell, I even hug the dogs and talk to them more than I do my own wife. And she's right. I feel like I'm just surviving, barely hanging on. I'm this close to moving up in my career, but I'm also this close to finding comfort at the bottom of a whiskey bottle. Update: I finally confronted my wife and didn't back down when she started with her usual, woe is me act. But instead of talking things through, she packed her bags and left to stay with her sister. The very next day, she tried to come back and take the kids with her to a sister's place. Naturally, I wasn't having that, and thankfully neither was her family, including her sister. It wasn't right to uproot our kids and dump them into a house that wasn't theirs, and it definitely wasn't fair to put that kind of financial and housing stress on her sister's family, especially since she doesn't work. Her sister already has a full house with her husband, 3 kids, and their dad. After being away for a little over a week, I guess she decided she'd cooled off enough, so she just waltzed back in with her bags like she'd only been out shopping. She barged into my home office while I was on a conference call with my team, just glaring at me. I couldn't just drop everything, especially during a busy time like this, but that didn't sit well with her. As soon as I took off my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling at me, saying I didn't care about her or her well-being at all. All I could do was look at her and shake my head. There was nothing left to say. Mother-in-law came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her to not bother me while our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. At night after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink as I've been doing for the past nights, and my wife came in. We talked, we argued, we cried, we drank. One thing led to another and we were in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up, but the next sobering morning as we lay there, she went on about how hard it was for her the time she was gone. Literally, it was about her struggles staying at her family house in her old room with her dad and sister's family, how lucky I am to be able to stay here and do this, and that and buy this or do that, and not stress as much as they did. How easy my, and everyone else's in our family lives are compared to hers, even though we had similar upbringings. My mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then, and this last week I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out, but I was met with a shouting match while trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work in general. Wife, well, do you know how hard this is all for me? You're supposed to help me be happy me. So when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs, and overall well-being, if me, I should just get over it, right? Wife, we all have our own problems. You need to figure it out and get over them. I don't know who the woman I am at home with is, but that wasn't the woman I married and vowed to spend my life with and raise our kids together. Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant with her. I've been sleeping in my office or on the couch or with my kids in their bed after putting either one of them to sleep. Still doesn't change her starting her day at 10 a.m. and sitting on her phone talking to her mom groups with the kids in both mother-in-law and nanny's care. Nothing has changed, and I doubt that anything will change. Sadly, I think even if we got a divorce, nothing would change or feel different anyway, since during my wife's leaving, the days seemed like any other day, except with a little more takeout than usual. My main fear there isn't that I wouldn't just lose my wife, I'd lose my kids in the process. Update 2, after a hard push from our family via an intervention, my wife and I finally attempted to go to marriage counseling. I'm sure many of you can guess how well that went. Blame, tears, regrets, gaslighting, with a side of I am the reason for her life being ruined and horrible again. Just this time in front of a licensed therapist instead of mom groups. In the end, everything the therapist suggested and noted went over her head and ignored as it was against the grain of her status quo. One thing I guess worth saying was the therapist asked if she could recall when she last truly felt happy. Her response was about 12 or so years ago. Please note, 12 years ago, she was still in her 20s, childless, living with her ex, a vastly different time and position in life. I know it's petty of me, but I guess if that's when she was last happy, it wouldn't be that far of a stretch for her to find that happiness again, since her ex is in the same apartment, job, and place in life that he was 12 years ago. Which is fine if that's how you want to live life. I try not to judge, but in my 40s with kids, going clubbing 3 to 4 days a week is not my jam anymore. To add, I know some will ask, I know and can confirm she hasn't physically cheated on me, but can't confirm if she did emotionally. After said therapy session, I checked all her phone records and didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but I also didn't bother to check apps like IG or Snapchat. I know I'm probably boring, but shout out to all the Costco dads whose Sunday fun day includes making rounds with kids for samples. The following weekend was Father's Day, and this year, as expected, not that big of a celebration as it is for many dads out there. Our family got together to celebrate with a BBQ and just simple family time, and my wife treated it like any other day. Sleep in, get up, cook, phone, shop, attempt to play with kids' phone. During said family BBQ, my wife said she felt ill, so she sat around most of the day while the rest of the family as a whole made the experience enjoyable. When everything was set up and the family all sat at the table, her parents and sister's family, my mother, our kids, admittingly, it was a great spread. Nothing extravagant, but just a great meal for everyone. I was conversing with my brother-in-law about both of our kids' school Father's Day activities, and I assume my wife overheard when I mentioned that it was a little sad to see some kids sit alone without their father during the breakfast with dad event I attended. She blurted out with a laugh loud enough for the whole room to hear, "It's not like you do anything anyway." I could have gone instead. At that moment I was red and at a loss for words, sitting there processing what she said in my head while the dining room went dead silent. My Emile broke the awkwardness and in response said, "Well, maybe if you feel that way, one of you should divorce the other." My wife looked at my Emile confused that she would respond with that and laughed mockingly in my direction and with her hand pointing at me said, as if another woman would want a man like him, "Just look at you." While the room sat silent, I was angry, heartbroken, confused, and embarrassed all at the same time. In manly man fashion, I just nodded my head in silence, stood up and picked up my keys and got in my truck and drove off to get a drink while trying to ignore the cries of the rest of the family, and our kids telling me to stay. I don't know what was said or done while I was out of the house the rest of Sunday, because I couldn't bring myself to check our house cameras, but when I returned early Monday morning, the house had a completely different feel. As usual, I woke up around 6, got the house and our oldest ready for school drop-off, checked emails, checked messages, nothing out of the ordinary. As I was getting dressed to leave, my wife laid in our bed snoring lightly. All I could do was look at her and think of what we had and now lost. I've decided I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I texted my lawyer that morning to move forward with serving her. Fast forward to last week, she was served at our home. She had, I guess what you could call a mini meltdown, and came into my office screaming, "How could I do this to her?" Her mother intervened, and that was met with me supposedly turning her whole family against her. But I digress. I probably would have felt bad if it wasn't immediately followed by the rest of her week acting as if she's been this active and attentive wife and mother the past few years. Sure, people can say she's making an attempt, but she's made many attempts, and historically, we fall back to where we've been. For those curious, I am aiming for full or at least majority custody of our kids. I already and will continue to cover all the expenses for our kids, insurance, tuition, both of our kids will be attending private schools come fall, medical bills, etc. My Emile has given me the courage and strength that helped supplement my own mother's support throughout this. Basically, she is what I hoped the kind of mother-wife my wife would have been to our kids and me. Out of respect for my Emile as well as per my own mother's shared wishes, I will continue to help oversee and contribute financial help if needed during her treatments. While some may feel I should cut their whole family off, I know the hardships pushed onto a family while dealing with cancer, and have dealt with it firsthand as a family member and care provider on both sides of the desk. All in all, I'm prepared to go to war if needed, but I just want a clean, no-fuss divorce. My wife has no alimony coming, so sorry for the Redditors and mommy gang Facebook groups saying she needs to divorce me first and get that sweet, sweet alimony money. 1. We live in a state that does not typically enforce alimony. 2. She has a means of gainful employment immediately. 3. To help curb any possible problems, I will cover her insurance and bills until either divorce is finalized or when she gains full employment. So that's that. I'm done and waiting for the steps to be taken for everything to be finalized. Sorry, it wasn't as exciting of a story with plot twist as some may have hoped for, but that's life. Not sure I'll update this once it's all finalized, which probably won't be for a few more months depending if we go to war or not.